Okay, so tonight I'm doing something a little different. Tonight is not really about victims. It is about the predators. And I what happened was I was hold on, let me fix the sound so I don't get an echo. Hey PJ. So what happened is I was trying to find some new information on Chuk uh, let me see if I can say this right. Chukwuebuka Nwobodo, the guy in Houston who murdered Felicia Johnson. Now, if you remember that, I'm sure you remember his name because nobody can pronounce it, including me, but we're just going to call him Chuck. But if you remember, Chuck killed Felicia Johnson in Houston not long ago. Felicia Johnson was actually from California. She went to Houston to look for work. She was trying to get a job at different strip clubs. She was indeed a sex worker, and he made arrangements with her to meet up for $500. He had her take an Uber, but he put in his old address at an apartment complex that he used to live at. Then he met her there, picked her up, and took her to his new apartment. No one has seen her since. Her phone was found with blood on it and some other strange things like that. Now, Chuck was actually arrested at one point during this. The police arrested him, but they let him go. Even though on his phone they found pictures of dismembered bodies. There was like three dismembered bodies on there, and pictures of Felicia. Um, and they let him go. Like I don't even get that. And apparently they must have checked out his search history and everything else because they know that he was googling things like how to be a serial killer, how to get away with murder, what is the most forested part of Houston, different things like this that just make you scratch your head because normal people who aren't up to anything just don't Google stuff like that. So nobody has seen him since. He done hit the highway. He's probably back in Nigeria uh, right about now. No telling, you know, um, because apparently he doesn't have a previous criminal record. So he could, if he's got a passport, obviously he has a passport since he's here from Nigeria, but he could be anywhere in the world right now. There's so many places that he could be because his passport, I believe Nigerian passports also are tied in with the UK, so they can pretty much go to any United Kingdom's country. So yeah, he could be anywhere in the world right now, and nobody's talking about him. I tried to find new information on him, and I couldn't. How do you just? They talked about him for maybe a week, and then boom, nothing. Like who does that? Why is there no more information out here on a guy who apparently has at least four bodies on under his belt, and the inference from his Google searches is that he intends to be a serial killer and may well have already accomplished that. So why is nobody talking about this dude? But I just wanted to put his name back out there because hey, somebody needs to be talking about this dude. So let me put his picture up too. Let me find a good picture of him real quick. I should have found a picture of him earlier, but I didn't realize I was going to talk that much about him. Yeah, it is odd. I mean, but then again, his his victims don't really meet the demographic of let's plaster them all over the TV. Right, add this to the stream, and I'm gonna show you guys some close-up pictures of him. Let's zoom in some. So this is him. Then this is a picture side by side with Felicia, whom he murdered. There's a couple more pictures of him too. I remember seeing another picture where he had on something else. I guess I'm not gonna find that one. right now.
You know why?
Hmm. Say hello, guys. My son is home.
Oh, they can hear me.
Yeah, they can hear you.
Oh man, what it do? You already know. Strap since close 1500 block, man. You know I'm free. But everybody go ahead and subscribe to my mom live. And anybody who want to subscribe, go ahead and send a share link to be a subscribe, man. You know how we get it down over there. Like my finger good as 10.
And y'all also keep your eyes out for Savage Games channel. It's gonna be his gaming channel. The gaming channel that I had set up is gonna end up being his gaming channel. Him and the kids, the girls, if they want to get on there. So I'm gonna try to promote that a little more. So I guess I had pictures of him, but they were on a different hard drive, and I can't get to them. There's another picture of him out there that shows him dressed differently, and a lot of times clothes make the difference. Like somebody could dress up a certain way and look entirely different than they do, normally. Okay, I guess there's not any more pictures of him up here. I'll find some though, and then when I find the ones that I had before, I'll post them on my community wall because this is a case that needs a whole lot of attention. I mean, the dude obviously close the door, baby, please. The dude obviously wants to be and probably has succeeded in being a serial killer. Oh, my son's name is Mike too. He was so busy talking so fast. All right, let's see. But I do want to talk about some serial killers that are active right now besides him. Because when I got to thinking about him, I was like, I wonder how many more there are. And it's hard to find out. I mean, we've always got active serial killers going. There's always a few of them out there. But just straight up Googling how many active serial killers in the United States, you get a bunch of weird results. So what I'm going to do is I found like two articles. One of them has like 8 different active serial killers, and one of them has 9. Some of them are the same, but we're gonna look at that real quick. This right here, I wanted to show you guys because let me tell you, if you're trying to get away from serial killers, then serial killers by state, the safest place is Hawaii. So if you're trying to get away from serial killers, you want to go to Hawaii. If you look right, come on, Hawaii, where you are? Hawaii. And this, let me show how the information is set up. Okay, so this first column is serial killer victims. So these are how many victims are known to be a serial killer's victim in that state. And then this next column is serial killer victims per 100,000 people. And in Hawaii, they have only 13 serial killer victims, and it boils down to less than one serial killer victim per 100,000. That's the only state that's less than one. Now, if you're just trying to run across a serial killer, or for whatever reason you might be trying to run across a serial killer, go to Washington D.C. Even though they only have 169 serial killer victims as opposed to 1,777 in California, they have 23.9 serial killer victims per 100,000 people, which is more than you can see all the rest of these. None of them are in the double digits except for Washington, D.C. So if you're trying to run across a serial killer, go to D.C. If you're not, go to Hawaii. Okay, so that's that. Close that out. And I'm not going to be on here very long tonight, guys. I don't know. I just wanted to come on here and share some stuff. I just found it interesting when I found it. Okay, go back to the top and let's get this page up. So this article is 8 terrifying serial killers we can't find. 8 terrifying active serial killers that we can't find. And number 8 is the Long Island serial killer. In the middle of the night on May 2nd, 2010, 24-year-old Shannon Gilbert called 911 from Oak Beach near Long Island, insisting someone was chasing and trying to kill her. She banged on doors, screaming for help, and was never heard from again. After months of searching the area, police finally found the body of a young woman near Gilgo Beach along the Ocean Parkway, but it wasn't Gilbert. Upon further examination, 3 more bodies turned up, and the police had a whole new problem on their hands. Within a few months, police found the remains of a total of 16 people in the area, at least 10 of whom appeared to have been killed by the same person. Stay away from Long Island. Put that on the list too. Some have been missing since as early as 1996, and body parts of 2 of them have been found years earlier in the same city 45 miles away. Gilbert wasn't found until December 2011, and officially, she stumbled into a marsh and drowned, which somehow led to injuries consisting of strangulation and being found face up. Yeah, that don't. Yeah, you drowned, but you have strangulation marks. Yep, that doesn't sound suspicious at all. Whatever the case, there was no denying that a serial killer was on the loose and had been for more than a decade. Two of the victims loved ones even received phone calls in 2007 and 2009 from someone claiming to know what happened to them, but police couldn't trace them. Gilbert's mother also received a phone call from a man who claimed to know where she was, but he later denied making the call, though his phone records proved otherwise. The police ruled him out as a suspect. He was one of many suspects who have come and gone, including a police chief, wow, who shut the FBI out of the investigation. None of them could be conclusively linked to the deaths. I gotta see what they're talking about this police chief. Okay, we'll go to that next. In 2020, the new police chief released an image of a belt they believed was handled by the serial killer bearing the initials HM or WH. So if you see William H. Macy, oh hell, we can't even joke about it. William H. Macy being anything other than a national treasure. I have no idea who William H. Macy is. But what I'm going to do is we're going to look at this picture. I think this is going to be a picture of the belt. Okay, do we have a picture of the belt in this article? Oh, I guess we won't be looking at this since it is behind a paywall. What we are going to do is we're going to check out this story about the chief who was suspected to be the serial killer. The Dirty Cop and the Hunt for the Long Island Serial Killer of Prostitutes. Okay, so his victims are sex workers. That is huge. Oh, there's a guy in there too. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and one of them is a guy. Okay. The Long Island serial killer case has now confounded the Suffolk County Police Department for more than a decade, and it's disappointing, if not altogether surprising, that Unraveled, the Long Island serial killer, doesn't definitively answer who committed the slayings. Okay, so this is a review um, of some documentary, and I don't want to go into a review of a documentary, especially one that I haven't seen. Hi, Chris. So what we're going to do is go back to our list. Share screen. This one without sound. I don't know. I'm kind of a serial killer junkie, or at least I used to be kind of a serial killer junkie. Like I couldn't get enough of reading about and watching documentaries about serial killers. I guess it's because here's the thing. Like this, I guess I've been like a true crime junkie since I was a little kid. Y'all remember the black and white little tabloid thing, the weekly news or something like that that they used to sell at the all the grocery stores, like right up there where the Inquirer and all that stuff would be at. I used to always read that. I used to get it all the time. I couldn't wait for my weekly fix. And so when uh when Ted Bundy was executed, they ran like a whole special about him and just all kind of details and information and stuff like that. And that was like the first serial killer case that I can remember ever reading about. And I was a kid then. I was probably like, I don't know, 9, 10, 11 years old, something like that, maybe even younger. Um, so yeah, I have a thing for like serial killers, for Bat Boy, and don't tell anybody, all those weird things like that, cryptids. So anyway, here we go. The Chicago Strangler, and of course, the Long Island serial killer is not found. He's still out there, or she. They're still out there, active. So be careful. The Chicago Strangler. Officially, the Chicago Strangler doesn't exist. People say there's no evidence that at least 55 mostly black women who have been found strangled to death since 2001 were killed by the same person, except all the ways in which the deaths are really, really similar. Almost all were killed outside or in abandoned buildings, strange if the murderer was known to them, and left in alleys, dumpsters, and other semi public places, plotting a neat line across the city. In fact, it was these similarities that first algorithmically, wow, I'm proud of me, alerted the Murder Accountability Project, who brought it to the local authorities' attention that, according to math, they had a serial killer on their hands. So we're looking at least 5 victims right here. It says the bodies formed a pattern according to the map. I would really like to see that whole map. The authorities remain skeptical, however, once public pressure forced them to cobble together a task force and actually review the DNA evidence, they found that none of the 21 total samples obtained from all the victims matched each other or anyone in the FBI database. That doesn't relegate the Strangler to the realm of Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, though. In fact, the founder of the Murder Accountability Project insists it's super weird that there wasn't more DNA evidence, suggesting we simply have a very careful killer or killers. The police also let it slip that they have confidential evidence suggesting at least 2 or 3 serial killers working under the Strangler MO. Wow. It kind of makes me think about the what was it, the Ridgeway killer and the Ridgeway Strangler and this other guy that were working in the same area at the same time. And then there was also out in California where you had 2 serial killers working the same area at the same time whose MOs were extremely similar. And so for a long time, they thought it was one person. In both of those cases, in a long time, they thought it was one person. It's crazy. Hi, Sheila. Welcome to the chat. All right, the Texas killing fields. Number 6. The 50 miles of barren wasteland from Houston to Galveston along the I-45 freeway is a sort of lover's lane for murderers. Since 1971, 30 bodies, wow, almost entirely young women and girls, have been found in this weedy expanse. The last as recently as 2006. They're clearly not all victims of serial killers, as 2 cases have been successfully prosecuted as isolated incidents. But like the nearby Gulf, they tend to come in waves. At least 2 clusters of murders, authorities believe, seem to be linked. In the mid 80s, 4 young women and teenage girls turned up in the fields, apparently killed by the same person. And that's pretty much all that's been figured out in the intervening decades. Wow, that's as far as they got. In 2013, one guy confessed to killing one of them, but his story keeps changing and he's already serving multiple life sentences for other crimes, so no one is too bothered about investigating. Seems like he would want to investigate anyway just to get closure for the families or whatever. In 1998, another guy confessed to killing six of the girls found in the fields in the early 70s, but that was apparently not enough evidence to charge him. Police apparently hated charging him. He was previously arrested 12 times for sexual assault, but nothing ever stuck. To be fair, he was serving a 70-year sentence at the time of his confession for murdering a guy who tried to stop him. Tried to stop him from doing what? So, there is another active serial killer. Well, yeah, active serial killer. It's weird how people confess to stuff like that, you know, even if they haven't done it, just attention seeking or something, or I don't know. I don't understand what would motivate somebody to just want to confess. Hey, Red Rock, to confess to a bunch of murders that they didn't do. And that guy that confessed to like six of them, but they couldn't pin it on him. It wasn't enough to prosecute. He probably didn't have the correct information about the murders, the MO, and all that other stuff. Hey, Moon Dancer. All right. Number 5, we're knocking this list down. West Mesa Bone Collector. Albuquerque, New Mexico is a strange place. All that turquoise chemistry, desert mass graves, etc. Okay, to be fair, there's presumably only one mass grave in the desert, found in 2009 after a local's dog brought her a human bone in a disturbing game of fetch. It contained the remains of 11 women and girls, all of whom disappeared in the area between 2001 and 2005. That was, unfortunately, pretty much all it contained. Developers had recently descended upon the site, probably shaking loose the bone found by the dog, but thoroughly contaminating any other evidence that might lead to the person that excuse me, to the person that's become known as the West Mesa Bone Collector. All police had to do, all police had to go by were eerie satellite photos of tire tracks and fresh graves that really the satellite should have reported. What do we even pay them for? Really? But police do have some leads. One man who lived nearby on land connected to the mass grave via dirt trails also was shot dead by the boyfriend of a woman he lured to his home and strangled right around the time the murders stopped. So that doesn't look great. Another is a convicted rapist with connections to many of the victims and a suspicious amount of women's clothing and jewelry in his home. Oh, that means that best case scenario, the killer is dead or already serving 90 years in a 90-year prison sentence. It could also be someone totally off the police's radar. In 2010, they identified two women who might have information about the case, but they've yet to come forward, likely because of their own comparatively minor legal troubles. That seems like an easy enough problem to solve, but our gavels are made of squeaky plastic, so cops don't listen to us. That's crazy. A mass grave in the middle of the desert. Hopefully, whoever that serial killer was is one of the two people, either the dead guy or the guy that's serving 90 years, so there won't be any more victims. I know, right? Can you imagine, man, if I was walking my dog and it brought me a human bone, I think I would just die on the spot. Like it's one thing to like read about these things, watch these things, look at pictures, but real life, I don't know that I can handle finding a dead body or a body part or something like that. I don't think I my brain would probably just explode. The Eastbound Strangler. On November 20th, this is number 4. On November 20th, 2006, two women out and about in Atlantic City were doing something that is none of our business behind the Golden Key Hotel when they came upon a woman's body in a drainage ditch. This being Atlantic City, that doesn't even qualify as particularly bad night. But after police showed up, they discovered three other bodies in the ditch about 60 feet apart. All women, all placed face down with their heads turned to the east. All fully dressed but no shoes or socks. In other words, some seriously creepy shite. Police first turned their attention to a handyman who'd been living in the hotel after his own girlfriend called them with her suspicions. But she was apparently out to set a record in passive aggression. He was definitely a shady dude. Police found hidden cameras that had recorded his girlfriend's teenage daughter undressing, but there appeared to be no link between him and the murders. Another local woman named a man who allegedly confessed to her that he'd killed people around the time of the murders, but he was never charged either. Again, it's Atlantic City. Just assume any dude who talks to you is a murderer. Wow. Okay. Number three, the Rainbow Maniac. I think this one is not in America, but I'm going to read it anyway. Tragically, but perhaps unsurprisingly, most of the victims of these serial killers were sex workers, likely because it's safer than average bet that a sex worker's disappearance won't be noticed for a while. Practical, Practicality doesn't always drive a serial killer's choice of target, though. Sometimes pure blind hate does the job just fine. That certainly appears to be the case with the Rainbow Maniac. Never even heard of this one. Unless he somehow had unrelated beef with every one of the 13 gay men he killed in Sao Paulo from 2007 to 2009. Brazil, and especially Sao Paulo, is in the weird place when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community. The city governments fund one of the largest pride parades in the world, but the country has been named the deadliest place in the world for gay and transgender people, one of whom is murdered every day there. Oh my, that's wild. That's something to wrap your head around. Like the government is really pro LGBTQ, but apparently the citizens aren't. This is the place. It's like such like opposing thoughts. Like this is the place you want to go to celebrate a pride parade because they put on one of the biggest ones in the world, but you might get killed if you go. That's crazy. That's a lot to wrap your head around. That might suggest the Rainbow Maniac's victims just pulled the unlucky number that day. But, and to think, one person every day, one gay person every day is killed there. Every day. One of whom is murdered every day. That's crazy. That might suggest the Rainbow Maniac's victims were just pulled the unlucky number that day, but they were almost all killed in the same way and found in the same park that's known as a cruising hotspot. Basically, exactly where you go if you were a serial killer targeting gay men. That was the scenario described by one witness who claimed to have seen retired policeman Jairo Francisco Franco prowling for the park for decidedly unsexy reasons after another I think that should have been prowling through the park for decidedly unsexy reasons after another witness fingered him again, not in the fun way, as the killer in a 2008 incident. A jury acquitted Franco in 2011, but to be fair, the trial did last an entire day. So, another possible cop who is a serial killer. I know, right? I'm too lazy to be a stalker, Elizabeth. I just don't have the energy. I can't commit myself to trailing someone that seriously. That's crazy. Thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing. JP Henson, I can't even get off my butt to go get a Coke out of the fridge. I know. My lazy time is coming. It's about to be winter, and you know when it's like really cold and you just don't want to get out of the bed because it is the perfect warm, and you know that the floor is ice cold and the wind is going to be a shock to you when you get out from under the blankets. Yeah, my lazy time is coming up here soon. All right, the Jeff Davis 8. When women's bodies began popping up, in somebody just mentioned the Jeff Davis 8 to me today, as a matter of fact. So it's kind of odd that it's in this article too. When women's bodies began popping up in the swamps and canals of Jefferson Davis Parish, Louisiana, between 2005 and 2008, it seemed to be more of the same as far as serial killers go. They were all involved in the local drug trade and or sex work. The ones whose cause of death could be determined appeared to have been asphyxiated, etc. The weird thing is that they all knew each other. And I listened to a podcast about it today. There are some seriously straight, like, they really all knew each other. Some of them lived together. Some of them were like cousins. Some of them were like friends. But they were all connected to each other in some kind of way. And despite what 90s teen slasher films might lead you to believe, that's uncommon for serial killers, even in such an isolated location. They were also all there's reason to believe police informants. At least one had a long rap sheet of charges that kept getting mysteriously dropped, and many of them also told their families they were police informants. So there's that. That might suggest the Departed esque scenario of snitches getting stitches, but all signs seem to point to either the cops themselves or a fellow informant. It's unclear why either would target the women, but some theorize they were all witnessed the death of a drug dealer at the hands of police during a raid gone wrong. That might be cause for. I could see that. If that's the case, it's again unclear why they were picked off over the course of years, but it's also possible the police simply covered up the murders to protect a better connected informant, and they certainly seem to have done everything possible to botch the investigation. That's why their families suspect that. Although every agency involved in the investigation blames a serial killer, the cops are behind the deaths in one way or another. In the language of the internet, ¿por qué no los dos? All right. Yeah, that's an interesting case if you want to like listen to it, check out a podcast about it. That's a whole bunch of weird going on in that case, and I wouldn't put it past being the cops or another informant with, and the cops are covering it up for him. Last but not least, Pedro Lopez. Unlike most of these cases, we know damn well who the so-called monster of the Andes was, who was killing little girls all over Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. We know because Pedro Lopez freely admitted to it in 1980 after he was caught in an attempted kidnapping. In for a penny, in for a pound, right? He actually confessed to so many murders, 110, that police initially didn't believe him. So he led them to the bodies of 53 victims. You think they'd concede after like 37. He later confessed to 240 more, but he'd apparently misplaced those ones because he was only convicted of the 110 they could prove. 110, and he's saying he killed 240 more. Pedro Lopez, known as the Monster of the Andes, was believed by police to be responsible for the murders of some 350 young girls throughout Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru. He served a 16-year sentence and was set free. Are you freaking kidding me? 16 years? That's all? 16 years? Bro, I am shooketh. Lopez was tried in Ecuador and given the maximum sentence allowed by the country, a whopping 16 years. He was even given time off for good behavior and released after serving 14 in a psychiatric hospital on the pinky promise that he'd pay $50 bail and follow the rules. Currently, nobody knows where he is. He could be behind you right now. In fact, if anyone has seen him since 1998, they ain't telling. Oh, and in 2002, Colombian police identified a new murder that they're pretty sure was Lopez's work. Sleep tight. 16 years. This man said he's killed 350 young girls and he got 16 years. I will never, probably not, but I will never complain about how our judicial system gives people a slap on the wrist again. Because 16 years for 110 confirmed bodies is beyond belief. This is crazy. I'm going to be saying 16 years all night. It's probably going to be in my dreams. 16 years. 16 years for 110, even though he confessed to 350 total young girls that he murdered. That's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, I remember somebody told me about him in one of my other lives, and we kind of looked into him a little bit. 16 years. Say, was that a jury or judicial sentencing? That's awful. You know what? I don't know. Let's find out. Cause 16 years. What's his name? Pedro Lopez. 16 years. Okay, let's see what we can see on Wikipedia real quick. Scroll down. Stop. Arrest, release. Okay, so it should be in the arrest section. Doesn't say. Let's try one other thing. Let's try Pedro Lopez trial. 16 years is absolutely. I just can't. I can't. I can't. I can't. I can't. A horrifying story. I don't see trial in any of these findings. So I guess he didn't have a trial. I don't. Jesus. If he only got 16 years, their judicial system probably doesn't even have judges and lawyers and stuff like that. They probably just pick a number out of a hat and tell the people to go to prison for that long. 16 years for 110 murders. Wow. I know for a fact that there's at least one woman in Florida who was sentenced to 350 something years for one murder. 110 years. That's 110 murders, 16 years. All right. Well, now that I've gotten my brain stuck on 16 years, I guess it's time for me to get off the internet because my mind is thoroughly blown. So, see, that ain't very long. It's like a slap on the wrist. Oh, here, you just won't get any orange juice with your freaking breakfast today. That's your punishment. I know, right, JP? You know what, though? Elizabeth, I don't even think it's so much that he's related to anyone. I don't know if the country that he was sentenced in is one of them, but I was reading something a couple of weeks ago, don't remember what, but something that stood out to me was that there are countries where no matter what crime you commit, they have like a set maximum amount of time that people can get. Like some countries, it doesn't matter what you do, you can't do more than 20 years. You can't do more than 30 years or whatever. So he might have been sentenced in one of those countries that has like a max cap on it to where the most he could have possibly got was 16 years. So who knows? Well, guys, I'm out of here. The news for today is Bubby's third birthday. She is 3 years old. We're gonna have her party next weekend. I might be able to share a few pictures. And yeah, that is the news for today. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with me and learning about these serial killers, and especially this weird 16-year sentence for killing 110 people. I just don't understand it. Make it make sense. Oh yeah, by the end of next week, I will have some make it make sense merch in the store, um, and I'll let you guys know when that goes up. We've already got the be their voice. Now we're gonna make it make sense. So I will see y'all probably tomorrow. Love you all and good night.